Hello, and welcome to the Body et al.'s Valentine's Day special. Today we're going to be talking about in-system relationships, how they work, why they work, some common misconceptions, and kind of just like how to have them. We'd also like to just start out with thanking LB Lee for helping us out with this. We'll talk more about that later. So the first question is obviously, what is an in-system relationship? In this case, I'm using system loosely to just mean any group of people sharing a body because it saves a lot of time. So an in-system relationship is what it sounds like. It's a relationship in between headmates. Of course, this can be just like a platonic relationship. You can just be friends. But today we're going to be specifically talking about things like partnerships, romantic relationships, and similar. The first question for that one is like, how does it work, or can you even do that? Well, you can do that, and many people have been doing that for a very long time. Generally, an in-system relationship will usually function a little bit like one between two people who are not in the same body. The main difference is sharing a body and sometimes being able to share thoughts and memories, which you can't generally do with an outer world partner. Because headmates are, generally speaking, people, and people are very different, and every person's relationships are different, in-system relationships are extremely varied. Most of the specific issues are the ones that come from being able to share thoughts and memories. There's two main misconceptions about in-system relationships. The first one is that an in-system relationship is just an alternative to an outside world relationship, that it's sort of inferior to them, and that it's just kind of like a way to be insular and not engage with the outside world. This isn't any more true than saying a relationship between two people in two different bodies is being insular from everyone outside of those two's relationship. A healthy relationship doesn't really influence how much you're able to interact with the outside world or how much you need to. It's just a relationship between two people. It's not for everyone by any means. A lot of people do need outer world relationships, and a lot of people just do not like inner world relationships. But they are equally important and valid. The second one is equally wrong, but in a different direction, and that's the idea that an in-system relationship is always going to be perfect and just fantastic because it's kind of wish fulfillment and you're both like kind of the same person, or like you can decide how it works exactly. And that's incorrect for the same reason the first one is. People in systems are as varied as people outside of them, and being in the same body doesn't mean you get along. Far from it. Sometimes relationships fall apart, sometimes there are breakups, and that's normal. That's a thing that happens, and it's fine, even if it sucks. And yes, it can be very awkward when you're sharing a body and you've broken up. One thing that I don't really want to dignify with a response, but I'll bring up because you might find it if you research yourself, is the concept of narcissistic investment. This is the idea that, well, it's narcissistic to date your own system because it's dating yourself and yada yada yada. Um, that's bullshit. Sorry, that's just, well, I think it's most important to remember that this idea is generally spread by people who believe integration is a requirement for a healthy system, and also by people who believe that you shouldn't name headmates and that headmates shouldn't interact with or like each other. The concept here is that it's basically inherently unhealthy to like the people you share your body with, which is the opposite of how it works, actually. So that's why I can't really take that one very seriously. So we've established that it's a thing and cleared up a couple of misconceptions, but like, how does it work? The two main things about it that I find are very different from outer world relationships is the concept of consent and spending time together. The concept of consent, this extends to non-sexual things, to be clear, and this is probably the most important part. Generally, when you're in a system, there are chances of thought leak, which is when your thoughts bleed over into each other's thoughts. As LB Lee discusses in, I believe I Love My Imaginary Friend, but I might be wrong about the name of the article, thought leak can be very misleading and does not function as consent. This can get confusing because Well, first, it's hard to distinguish between the two sometimes when you share a head. What's what they're saying and what's what they're thinking. It's easy to misinterpret thought leak as what's being said, and it's also easy to feel like you should listen more to their thoughts than what they say. This can lead to, at best, awkward situations and at worst, very bad ones. Because what we're thinking and what we know we need are generally very different things. It's easy to just say no means no automatically when you aren't hearing what the person is thinking and wanting. Generally, the line there, though, is still the assumption that no, or whatever you've agreed is your no, is no. And then you can, like, discuss or negotiate from there. Generally, the policy I've found in a lot of systems within system relationships is that no is no, and disturbing thought leak, like flashbacks or extreme anxiety, should also be taken as a no. But again, your mileage may vary. Everyone is different. It's also kind of difficult to have the air of secrecy or the ability to avoid each other most of the time. It's easy to assume you don't need to negotiate things or sit down and talk about things when you share a body and often thoughts. And that can lead to very awkward situations. For example, starting to date without ever having a conversation about dating, which is just generally not a thing you should do in any relationship. Especially if you don't have a discussion or some kind of negotiation on things like terminology, and one of you is not fronting when the other is talking about something, and then uncomfortable language is used, for example. A lot of the time, when you have a crush on someone in your system, everyone knows immediately. This can be awkward or this can be good. Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel on that one. Personally, I don't really care. But that's because it's been more than anything convenient for me. The second big thing is spending time together. There are a lot of things that you cannot do in a relationship where someone else shares your body. I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a way that won't get the video suppressed. There are certain intimate activities that can't be done with only one body. It's hard to go on some kinds of dates. You can't really hold hands and like hug in the outer world. And that can not be fun. Of course, this is a thing that you can work around. And many people do. For systems with very elaborate and vivid inner worlds, this is far easier compared to those without them. For example, if you and your headmates can interact physically in the inner world, and just feel that entirely, then it usually matters less that you can't with your body. We do not have that kind of inner world, personally. So for us, when we've had in-system relationships, which we currently only have one, me and Riley, it's been a bit harder to do things together. The best things to do together have been streaming games, because it gives us both a chance to talk out loud and interact with people, watching things together, and planning activities and things together. We also have one mutual girlfriend, so doing things with her can be nice. I've heard of some systems, and I probably would do this if I lived near my girlfriend, having a partner or a very close friend stand in physically for their partner, to be able to hug their partner, or other things too. That's not required, but some people choose it. Another very common thing is to have a stuffed animal that you can hug as your partner. This one is not for my in-system partner, but this is my proxy for my girlfriend because I'm currently in a long-distance relationship. His name is Mr. Moo. Honestly, this is harder for me to talk about than I expected because for me, it's hard to explain how similar and different these relationships are. Another problem here also is just very few people actually talk about it, and most of what I can find talking about it are sort of one-off zines or one-off mentions by specific people who talk about it only one time and often not with a lot of depth. Actually, to this day, the only collective that I found with multiple resources on it, and comprehensive ones at that, has been LB Lee. Shout out to LB Lee. In the description, I'll be linking some of the things LB Lee shared with me when I reached out to them to help with the video, as well as some of like their own provided resources. Because this is YouTube, I don't feel particularly comfortable trying to go into any sexual aspects of any relationships, but LB Lee does have some good information on that, specific consent around there, and safety. And while I do know a few plurals who are on YouTube and elsewhere, at least semi-open about having in-system relationships, it's not very commonly spoken about, and I think that's a bit of a shame. I think the thing about the plural community that makes me the saddest is that we don't talk as much about weird things anymore. We talk about specific things and we talk about cringe things, but we don't talk about soul bonds with fictional characters who we're in love with, which I would explain more, but I'm not. Soul bonding is kind of beyond me. We don't talk a whole lot about our in-system relationships or how we have them. I don't know. I'd like to make that happen more. Because I like in-system relationships. To talk a bit about my in-system relationship is currently, as I mentioned, with Riley. It was initially a romantic relationship, kind of a side relationship to both of our main relationship with our girlfriend in another body. I will say I have been aromantic the whole time, but I do enjoy dating people. If you've watched our videos, you know Riley did go dormant for 9 months last year, and that kind of, affected our relationship a lot. Our dynamic has switched a bit since. We no longer consider ourselves romantic partners. We're not necessarily partners, but we do consider ourselves to be dating. Riley would describe it in a bit of in probably a less polite way, but that's because that's how Riley talks about everything. And in terms of being out about our relationship, I believe the card will be up that side. God, I hope so. For our video on being plural in real life. We've been casually mentioning each other at a queer bar, sometimes mentioning that we share a body, and it's been going pretty well. As you may notice in some of the resources below, spirit marriage is a lot more normalized in certain cultures. Spirit marriage is essentially what it sounds like, marriage to spirits, and it often intersects with plurality. I can't find the back for this earring, it keeps falling out. I just think it's nice. I think it's a nice thing that plurals do. I think it's nice to be able to have a specific kind of relationship that doesn't really exist for people alone in their bodies. It's interesting, at the very least. It's often safer for some systems. Like, if you're closeted as some level of queer, or as plural, often it's not safe to have relationships with people outside your system. And sometimes you're just stuck with Riley, and you want to kill them. But you are dating. I wish I had more useful things to say, but also I think / hope it's useful just to start a conversation. So here we are. In-system relationships are normal, they're healthy. Well, okay, maybe not normal, but they're healthy. They're good. I like mine. I hope you like yours if you have one. It doesn't make you any less real or less valid to have or want one, or to not have or want one. We recently started a Discord server, both for this channel and for plural people in general. There we actually have a whole channel just devoted to plural relationships, including with people outside of your body and inside. So go ahead and check that out if that interests you. We're going to include some links to a bunch of resources and stories surrounding dating headmates and similar. We hope you have a wonderful day. Click around in the description box, I guess. Thank you for watching. Happy Valentine's Day, or whatever you celebrate. And I hope it isn't too cold wherever you are. Or too hot if you're in the southern hemisphere. Bye.